As she sat watching the world go by, something caught her eye. It wasn't so much its color or shape, but the way it was moving. She squinted to see if she could better understand what it was and where it was going, but it didn't help. As she continued to stare into the distance, she didn't understand why this uneasiness was building inside her body. You were not born to shrink into the shadows of your circumstances. You were born to rise, to overcome, to create your life, not just survive it. The moment we stop blaming the world, our past, our parents, our boss, our luck, our government, that is the moment we reclaim our power. Every time you say, I can't because, you hand your power to someone else. You reinforce the bars of a prison that exists only in your mind. Life isn't fair. True, people will disappoint you, opportunities might slip through your fingers, and sometimes pain will come knocking without an invitation, but you always have a choice. Not in what happens, but in how you respond. Victim mentality is a subtle thief. It disguises itself as protection. I was hurt before, so I can't trust now. They always get ahead, so what's the point in trying? It convinces you that your limitations are permanent, that your story is already written, that you're destined to live in reaction rather than intention. But let me tell you something powerful. No one is coming to save you. That's not bad news. That's your greatest opportunity, because when you realize that, you stop waiting, you stop hoping someone else will fix it, you stop surrendering your energy to things beyond your control, and you start leading your life. Blame is easy, responsibility is hard. But responsibility is the birthplace of freedom. When you say, this is my life and I choose how I show up, you begin to shape your destiny. You begin to tap into the quiet strength that has been sitting inside you all along, waiting for permission to rise. You don't need perfect conditions. You need relentless commitment. You need to ask yourself, what am I choosing today? Not what happened to me, not what others did. What am I choosing? Choose courage over comfort. Choose action over excuse. Choose growth over grievance. The road forward is not paved with pity. It is carved with clarity, decision, and the will to say, I will not be defined by what hurt me. I will be remembered for how I healed. You're not a victim, you're a creator, and the pen is already in your hand. So write something bold, write something fierce, write something free. There's a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether they will continue to be shaped by what has happened to them or begin shaping what happens next. That moment is when you stop pointing fingers and start holding the reins. Because the truth is, as long as you keep blaming your parents, your past, your circumstances, your boss, the economy, you are choosing to remain powerless. And here's something most people don't want to hear. No matter how real the pain was, no matter how unfair the situation seems, blame changes nothing. It might feel justified, it might even feel good in the short term, but it will never move you forward. When you reclaim your power, you make a declaration to life. I am not a puppet of circumstance. I am a creator of outcomes. And that is not just motivational fluff. That is a shift in identity. It is deciding to no longer live in reaction to the world, but in alignment with what you want to build. It is standing in the middle of your chaos or your pain and saying, this is where it turns. Right here, right now, with me. The people who change their lives are not the ones who are handed perfect conditions. They are the ones who stopped waiting. They are the ones who got tired of giving their energy to everything that was outside of their control and instead turned inward and said, what can I do? What can I create? What can I become? That moment of choosing ownership over victimhood is not loud, it's not dramatic. It's often quiet, almost unnoticeable, but it is powerful beyond measure. It's a decision that separates the few who rise from the many who stay stuck. And once you've tasted that kind of power, the power that comes from owning your life, you'll never want to give it away again. Life doesn't ask for your permission before it throws challenges your way. It doesn't pause to check whether you're ready before it tests you. Things will happen, some small, some earth-shattering. People will disappoint you, plans will collapse, the unexpected will find you, but none of that defines you. What defines you is how you respond. Because while you may not control every event, you always control the meaning you give it and the action you choose next. That's where your true power lives, not in trying to control the outside world, but in mastering your inner world, your thoughts, your decisions, your attitude, your resilience. There's a gap between what happens to you and how you respond to it. And in that gap, you create your life. People with a victim mentality live in constant reaction. They see themselves as powerless to what's happening, so they wait for things to change, for someone to rescue them, for circumstances to magically improve. But those who rise above, who step into their potential, understand a deeper truth. That power doesn't come from control. It comes from choice, from choosing not to let fear dictate your future, from choosing not to let pain write your story, from choosing growth even when it's hard. You are not what happened to you. You are not what someone said or did or took away. You are the awareness that can look at it all and say, okay, that was real, but now what? You can either keep rehearsing the pain or start rehearsing the possibilities. When you stop obsessing over what's out of your control and start focusing on the one thing you always own, your response, you stop being at the mercy of life and start becoming the architect of it. That shift doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. Courage, a refusal to let external chaos rob you of internal clarity. It's not about pretending everything is okay. It's about choosing who you'll become because of it. That is the difference between living in fear and stepping into freedom, between being stuck and being unstoppable. The most dangerous prisons are not the ones made of steel and stone, they're the ones built in the mind. And the victim mentality, it's the master architect of that invisible prison. It convinces you slowly and silently that your best days are behind you, that you can't win because of what's already happened, that your scars are your story and there's no chapter left to write. But here's the truth. Those bars around you, they're made of beliefs you agreed to, maybe without even realizing it. The victim mindset says, I can't because, and fills in the blank with 1,000 excuses that feel like facts. It tells you the world is against you, that the game is rigged, that effort won't matter, and the worst part, it feels comforting. Because if you're not responsible, you don't have to change. But comfort is not freedom. It's a quiet surrender, a resignation dressed up as realism. But what if those limits aren't facts? What if they're just habits of thought? What if you've been walking in circles inside a cage whose door has been open the whole time? The moment you start questioning that voice, the one that tells you you're stuck, broken, or too far gone, is the moment you start shaking the foundation of that prison. And when the walls crack, when the illusion breaks, you see what was always true. You were never powerless, you just believed you were. No, it's not easy. It's not about pretending life has been fair. It's about refusing to let your past dictate your future. It's about choosing to be the author, not the echo. When you reject the identity of a victim, you don't deny the pain, you rise above it. You use it, you transform it. And suddenly you're not just living life, you're leading it. The cage only holds you as long as you believe it's real. The key has always been in your hands. And today, as good a day as any to set yourself free. There comes a time when you have to stop scanning the horizon, waiting for someone to come along and make everything better, waiting for the apology that never came, waiting for the opportunity that never knocked, waiting for the right timing, the right person, the right miracle. That time has to end because no one is coming to save you. And that's not a reason to despair. That's your breakthrough moment. Because when you truly accept that no one is responsible for your happiness, your healing, your success, but you stop waiting and you start becoming, you begin to understand that every ounce of energy spent on hoping someone else will fix your life is energy you could be using to build it. We grow up with this quiet expectation that one day something or someone will swoop in and rewrite our story. That one conversation will change everything. That one lucky break will lift us out of the chaos. But life doesn't work that way. The people who rise, they're not waiting. They've realized that hope is not a strategy, action is. Taking responsibility for your life is not about blaming yourself for everything that's gone wrong. It's about refusing to be passive. It's about declaring that your life is yours and no one else has the authority to dictate how it unfolds. Not your past, not your pain, not the people who hurt you. You get to decide where you go from here. It's easy to stay in a place where you can say, I can't move forward because of them, or I'm still stuck because of what happened. But the moment you stop putting your destiny in someone else's hands, you start to reclaim every part of yourself that was waiting to be rescued. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about recognizing that everything you need to change your life is already within you. The clarity, the courage, the creativity, all of it. And no, it won't happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide you're done waiting and ready to lead. That's the moment your life starts to shift, not when someone saves you, but when you do. There comes a time when you have to stop scanning the horizon, waiting for someone to come along and make everything better, waiting for the apology that never came, waiting for the opportunity that never knocked, waiting for the right timing, the right person, the right miracle. That time has to end because no one is coming to save you, and that's not a reason to despair. That's your breakthrough moment. Because when you truly accept that no one is responsible for your happiness, your healing, your success, but you stop waiting and you start becoming, you begin to understand that every ounce of energy spent on hoping someone else will fix your life is energy you could be using to build it. We grow up with this quiet expectation that one day something or someone will swoop in and rewrite our story. That one conversation will change everything. That one lucky break will lift us out of the chaos. But life doesn't work that way. The people who rise, they're not waiting. They've realized that hope is not a strategy, action is. Taking responsibility for your life is not about blaming yourself for everything that's gone wrong. It's about refusing to be passive, not your past, not your pain, not the people who hurt you. You get to decide where you go from here. It's easy to stay in a place where you can say, I can't move forward because of them, or I'm still stuck because of what happened. But the moment you start putting your destiny in someone else's hands, you start to reclaim every part of yourself that was waiting to be rescued. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. It's about recognizing that everything you need to change your life is already within you. The clarity, the courage, the creativity, all of it. And no, it won't happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide you're done waiting and ready to lead. That's the moment your life starts to shift. Not when someone saves you, but when you do. Most people don't realize this, but the moment you take responsibility for your life is the moment you set yourself free. It's not a punishment, it's a privilege. Responsibility is not a burden you carry, it's the power you step into. It says, I may not have chosen what happened to me, but I absolutely choose what I do with it. See, blame is seductive. It gives you a target, it gives you someone or something to point the finger at. It lets you off the hook. But here's the truth. While blame might feel good in the moment, it will never build your future. Blame locks you into the past. Responsibility opens the door to what's possible. When you stop saying, they made me feel this way, and start saying, I'm choosing how I respond, everything begins to shift. You no longer feel like a victim of your emotions, your circumstances, or your history. You become the driver. And that kind of shift isn't just empowering, it's transformational. But let's be honest, responsibility is hard. It means admitting that your life is in your hands now, that no matter how unfair things were, it's still on you to rise. That takes courage, that takes maturity, that takes a kind of honesty most people avoid their whole lives. But once you taste that kind of ownership, you'll never trade it for blame again. Because ownership is the beginning of freedom. It's a seed of real change. You can't change what you refuse to take responsibility for. You can't fix what you keep blaming someone else for. Growth begins with a choice. I will stop waiting for something to shift, and I will become the shift. That's where your strength lives. Not in the story of what happened to you, but in the power of what you decide to do next. You don't need to control everything. You just need to own your part. Your attitude, your actions, your habits, your mindset, that's your domain. That's where the magic happens. And when you lean into that kind of power, the world around you begins to respond. Not because it changed, but because you did. It's easy to find reasons not to try. It's easy to list all the things that are standing in your way, the people who doubted you, the chances you didn't get, the pain you didn't deserve. Excuses are always available. They're comfortable, they're familiar. They make it easy to say, it's not my fault. But the truth is, every time you reach for an excuse, you trade in your potential. You give up growth in exchange for comfort. And let's be clear, comfort isn't peace. It's just the absence of challenge. It's the quiet companion of a life half lived. Growth requires effort. It requires you to face the discomfort head on. It demands that you look at your life and say, I might not have chosen where I started, but I refuse to stay here. Action is what separates the person who dreams from the person who does. The person who talks about change from the one who becomes it. You can have every reason in the world to stay stuck, but the people who rise, the ones who rewrite their story, act anyway. They feel the fear and still move forward. They carry the weight of uncertainty and still take the step. The victim mentality wants you to believe that nothing will ever work, so why bother trying? But that voice isn't truth, it's a habit. And like any habit, it can be broken. You break it every time you show up differently. Every time you choose to act in the face of resistance. Every time you stop waiting to feel ready and do it anyway. Action is the antidote to helplessness. It's the proof that you are not defined by what has happened to you, but by what you decide to do about it. And here's the paradox. When you take action, especially in the smallest ways, you begin to feel powerful again. You start to realize that you're not stuck, you are just standing still. Don't let excuses talk you out of your future. Don't let comfort convince you to settle. Choose action, choose movement, choose forward, even when it's hard, even when it's slow. because every step you take is a step away from the victim story and a step toward the life that's waiting for you to claim it. Every day you're making choices. Whether you realize it or not, you're choosing your thoughts, your focus, your beliefs, your energy, your story, and those choices repeated again and again become the architecture of your life. The question is, are you choosing by design or by default? People trapped in a victim mindset often don't see their choices. They think everything is happening to them, not realizing that in every situation, no matter how tough, they still have power. The power to choose how they respond, the power to choose their perspective, the power to choose whether they'll react out of fear or act from intention. And that's where transformation begins, because choice is everything. The life you want doesn't appear in one grand moment. It's built through thousands of small, often invisible decisions. The decision to get up instead of give up, the decision to speak life instead of repeat pain, the decision to stop blaming and start becoming. Your destiny doesn't come from luck or circumstance. It's carved out by your choices. You can choose to believe in your own ability, even if no one else ever has. You can choose to try again, even after 100 setbacks. You can choose to break cycles, rewrite patterns, and walk away from stories that no longer serve the person you're becoming. When you stop living in reaction to what happened and start living in alignment with what you want, everything changes. You stop waiting for permission, validation, or perfect conditions. You begin to realize that the most powerful thing you can ever say is, "This is my life, and I choose how I live it." And sure, some days are going to feel heavier than others. Some choices will be hard, but every time you choose growth over blame, courage over fear, progress over excuses, you take back a piece of yourself. You reinforce the belief that you're not stuck. You're just one choice away from a new path. You are not powerless. You never were. Your future is not written in stone. It's written in the choices you make from this moment on. So choose wisely, choose boldly, choose like your life depends on it, because it does. Pain is part of the human experience. None of us make it through life without facing loss, betrayal, disappointment, or hardship. But pain is not the enemy, it's the teacher. What becomes dangerous is when we let pain become our identity. When we begin to see ourselves not as someone who experienced pain, but as someone who is defined by it. That's where the victim mentality takes root. It whispers, "This happened to you, so this is who you are now," and convinces you that healing is impossible, or that moving forward is somehow a betrayal of your past. But here's the truth. You can honor your story without being imprisoned by it. You can acknowledge the pain without dragging it into every chapter of your life. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is not pretending it didn't hurt. Healing is standing in your truth and saying, "Yes, that shaped me, but it will not define me." Because the moment you decide that your pain does not get to be the author of your future, you take the pen back into your own hands. You start writing something new, something resilient, something bold, something free. Letting go of the victim mindset doesn't mean the hurt wasn't real. It means you're no longer letting that hurt control your direction. You're choosing to grow from it. You're choosing to use it as fuel rather than an excuse. You're choosing to be bigger than what tried to break you. There's power in that decision. There's power in declaring that your spirit is stronger than your struggle, that you're not just going to survive what happened, you're going to rise because of it. That is how people transform their lives, not by pretending they were never wounded, but by refusing to let the wound keep bleeding into every moment of their future. So ask yourself this: are you going to let your pain define you, or are you going to let it refine you? You get to decide, and in that decision, you reclaim everything the past tried to take. Because healing isn't weakness, it's your greatest act of strength.